All right. Neoliberalism has declared war on all discourses and shifted our priorities and consecrated destruction to our way of life. Metal Gear Solid 4 presents open criticism of neoliberalism by pointing out a inevitable conclusion of war policies, endless war and neighbor control. Revenue 12. Hybrid is the root of evolutionary speed of the transnational video game industry. The other crucial factor was the arrival of the internet. Digital technology opened up possibilities for decentralization and diversification. The most important change between MGS4 and the previous iterations is its explicit critique of neoliberalism. Neolib has become hegemonic as its promoted discourse. It's become incorporated into the way many best understand the world. The process entailed much great destruction not only of prior institutional framework and powers, but also of divisions like labor, social relations, welfare provisions, technological basis, what makes its ways of life in thought and reproductive activities, attachments to land, habits at heart. It seeks to bring all human action into the domain of the market. MGS4 openly critiques the hegemony of those market transactions by linking the neo-colonial war to U.S. empire, to neoliberalism's critique the culture of financialization. The link is already visible in the opening sequence. Open shots of the dusky battlefield somewhere in the Middle East, bombed out buildings and corpses lined the road. The soundtrack plays a mournful song called Love Thing. The camera shows close shots of militia members' faces photed at the board of one particular truck. Snake speaks its voice, however. War has changed. It's no longer about nations' ideologies for ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles fought by mercenaries and machines. War and its consumption of human life has become a well-oiled machine. ID tag soldiers carry ID tag weapons, use ID tag gear, nano machines inside their bodies enhance and regulate their abilities. Genetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control. War has changed. The age of deterrence has become the age of control, all in the name of averting catastrophe from weapons of mass destruction. And he who controls the battlefield controls history. War has changed. When the battlefield is under total control, war becomes routine. The irony is that war has not changed in the slightest. Warfare remains horrifying. MGS war escape world is modeled under painstaking research into contemporary military hardware. The MGS franchise is one of the staunchest critics of two most prolific apologetics for violence. The first is founding use coverage of the U.S. Empire's 21st century war. Second is the glorification of the U.S. Empire. Its new colonial war, which remains pervasive in the first version video game shooter. ID tags are a straightforward extrapolation of the RFID chip. These chips are a key means of tracking subcomponents and supply chains, and enables companies to coordinate transnational networks of production, transportation, distribution. The economic violence of neoliberalism is every bit as destructive as wartime combat. Unemployment, administration, and malnutrition are less worthy than armed conflict, but cause just as many less biggest threats to such power as interruption of communication. Any system breakdown is a function of stress, and our affirmative embraces an alternative, not through utopian action, by allowing imagination alternatives to neoliberalism. Our process today, deliberation, is key to exploring the video game commons and challenging neoliberal control over ideology. Argument 12. Video game commons is beginning to deliver forms of critique which are superior in quality and accuracy to those delivered by advertising independent commercial sites. The MGS war foreshadowed one of the key geopolitical shifts of the dawning post-neoliberal era. These games not depict multipolarity, some utopian ideal, but they embody the world they wish to realize. They disrupt and negate the stereotypes of nationality, race, sexuality, or gender, which inflict their respective genres. Acknowledging, thinking through, and critiquing those performances necessary for a step in reclaiming our digital labor as their own. Video games allow us to break loose from the planetary prison house of neoliberalism to glimpse the possibility, no matter how faint or changing, of transforming the world system of capital into a world of free human beings. And we are relevant to the topic of MGS wars, nobody criticism of offensive cyber operations. Red all 10. The Metal Gear series positive critique of imperial power from within the mainstream gaming culture's militarized masculinity. Metal Gear articulates and amplifies the tensions between deadly craft and automated battlefield, between soldier autonomy and engineer subjectivity, between loyalty and lying systems in whose services activate. Kojima indicates in MGS where I focus more on the presence of unmanned machines. I want people to become aware of the global realities by playing the game and practicing the values within the game allows us to better understand what allows the live to dominate society in the first place. And challenging Conflict 12, the player as a result becomes to find itself not only learning and practicing monolithic values within the game, but also thinking consciously and reflectively about some of their cultural models regarding the world, juxtaposing them with new models that may conflict with and or otherwise relate to them in its various ways. Video game narratives are embodied in the player's own choices and actions in a way they cannot be in books, in movies. Player investment in narrative outcome as a result is high when one considers how the outcome of the game experience is much about as striving for a valorized outcome as to the construction and maintenance of an ideal self, view of projective identity. And neoliberalism produces crisis, securitizes them, military lashes out against, so this cycle triggers every impact, terminates an extinction must contend. The logic of growth is driving depletion of the hydrocarbon and other natural resources at unprecedented unsustainable rates, thereby accelerating human interference with the Earth's climate. Crises are impacting our ability to sustain global food production. Water shortages and hotter weather are destroying the viability of agriculture. Securitizing global crises then lead to strategies of militarization designed to boost the individual state's resilience to crises through intensification of control mechanisms that focuses on developing the most optimal way of exploiting the natural world to the maximal extent. Neoliberalism has difficulty viewing the world in anything other than rationalist, instrumentalist action, legitimizing overexploitation of natural resources without limits and inadvertently subordinating ecological energy, food, and human security given the other competitive pressures of private sector profit maximizations, which systematically erodes this relationship globalization security on a massive scale by reducing their destructive state behavior to a functional instrumental reason. Both approaches rationalize the deeply irrational collective human actions that are destroying the very conditions of our existence, and Neoliberalism makes those disposable those it renders have-nots and makes them socially invisible. 0 and 8. Deterministic forces of every deep inequality have become the defining feature of neoliberal policies aimed at holding down social state are now matched by an increase in repressive legislation. The alleged morality of market freedom is now secured through the unbreaking morality of military states and embraces torture, war, and violence as a legitimate function of political sovereignty. Capitalism produces the acute crisis of human waste disposal industry for the punishing state, cultivates a culture of fear and suspicion towards all others. There is also unleashing a powerfully regressive symbolic and corporate violence against all individual student groups who have been other individuals marginalized are stripped of political significance and exposed to murderous violence. And status quo political science has felt we need to engage in video game criticism in order to embrace their impacts and challenge politics and society. Robinson 12, we need to play video games in order to understand the possibilities, spaces, and rules they create, and then to explore the possibilities and spaces, accept challenge and reject them in our daily lives. Games are uniquely persuasive, allowing players an almost unprecedented capacity to explore and question rules. Political science is not yet systematically engaged with video games. If this continues to substitute discipline to make a lasting contribution, may well be contributing to studying video games because dominated by an era of subfields which shapes perception, both what issues we should study and how we should study them. Video games have the ability to change ideologies and representations. Both Robinson 12, the game can give representations to the ordinary world that might give the player new perspectives on the world they inhabit. The process of experimentation can be used as metaphors to explore the rules that underpin society as a whole. Games as a framework that designers can use to model complexity and other problems that face the world, make them easier for players to comprehend by creating similar environments. Players is able to step away and think critically about those problems that contain real potential to challenge the dominant orthodoxies of ideologies, capacity to challenge militarization society, and games go beyond make sure they tackle real world problems. We've got to go I want gaming to be something that everyone does because they understand how the games could be real solutions to problems and the real source of having set for seeing games to fix our educational system to raise and democratic participation, tackle problems like conversation, poverty, augment our most essential human capabilities in order to create this future something to have. We have to overcome the lingering cultural bias against games. We need to build hybrid energies and unofficial partnerships of game researchers can work with engineers and architects and policymakers and executives. And we need to open up for a new form of persuasion. Video games create social change through use of procedural rhetoric. But goes in 7 video games are considered low art. Game studies are trying to identify and cultivate a similar trend in video games. Video games open up a new domain for persuasion. Thanks to core representation model, procedural rhetoric rather than spoken word. Writing images from pictures. Video games can also disrupt and change fundamental attitudes and beliefs throughout the world, leading to potentially significant long-term changes to paralyze in the very way video games bound claims to procedural rhetoric. Now, procedural approach allows us to look at the big picture and understand why the system is currently failing. Status quo is a collection of snapshots being sent back and forth. Our approach changes our conception to argumentation begins in 7. One usually makes a rhetorical claim precisely to exclude opposing positions. One might object to the underlying model for advertising influence presumes media, ecology of consumer capitalism, procedural representations often do allow the user to mount procedural objections through configuration systems. Thus, verbal arguments usually not facilitate open discourse of the Union Assembly. They invite others to conform to discourse in which interoperatives can engage, consider and respond to either via the same medium or different one. Just objection in a debate would take place through negation or rebuttal of the opponent rather than construction of a proponent. So objection of procedural artifact may take place through responding to a claim of verbal, written, or visual procedure form. They may merely part of the interlocutor to construct a new claim. In another context, and voting affirmative obstruction, neoliberalist war powers to the embracement of values and military soft role. The role of the affirmative should be to change the way the executive engaged sports and video games allows to question political systems as social and cultural practice. They need to be used arguments and practice in debating. Bogus made video games are models of real national systems. Video games make arguments about how social and cultural systems work or how they could work or don't work. We can interpret arguments and consider them their places in our life that helps us make or critique systems we live in, like political systems, social or cultural practices. We learn to ask questions about models and such games. Such games present to the kind of technology literacy procedural rhetoric offers is becoming increasingly necessary. Educators should consider adopting video games as artifacts to discuss the game playing as argumentative and expressive practice alongside debating and video games through procedural rhetoric better represent. Actually, don't really have enough time to get into that.
Right, ready for context?
Sure.
Right, your advocacy statement says that voting affirmative is a disruption of neoliberalist war powers for the embracement of the values of Metal Gear Solid 4. What values of Metal Gear Solid 4 do you embrace to break down neoliberalism?
We embrace a few values. One is the stealth gameplay aspect of the game, where it encourages you to avoid conflict as much as possible and avoid lethal conflict as much as possible. Even rewards you for not killing anyone in the game as you beat it. 2 is
let me get
the shop and
avoid conflict.
Sure.
Go ahead.
2 is the way the currency system works. So you get points, and those points are used to get weapons that are smuggled through black markets. You learn through this specific market from Drevin that you can challenge the way government controls through ID tags and whether or not the gun works by acquiring these weapons. 3 is the entire story of the game itself. You're fighting against the Patriots, and you're fighting against giant control systems.
That was a minute. I think that's enough. So you say that the role of the affirmative should be to change the way the executive engages in war based off these values. So obviously, you can't just apply Metal Gear Solid to the executive because one's a video game that takes place in a fictional world, and one's the government policy making. Obviously, you can take the value. I haven't asked the question yet. This is my cross-section. Obviously, you can take the values of Metal Gear Solid and apply it to the executive. My question is, what should the executive do with these new values that they have about neoliberalism? Like, what actions
should they take? The relevant question in this debate. The relevant question is what our relevant evidence points to is how we can analyze Metal Gear Solid 4 and challenge neoliberalism.
No, I get that, but if we analyze Metal Gear Solid 4 and you're like, hey, Metal Gear Solid 4 is a great example of how we can approach neoliberalism, we then have a different mindset about neoliberalism. My question is, what do we do with that different mindset? What actions do we take to break down neoliberalism? I mean, you talk about war. Do we avoid conflict? Like, should the executive no longer go to conflict and war? I mean, you talk about
I think you're confusing the point of this debate. The point of this debate isn't to determine what the United States federal government should do, but it's to determine what procedural rhetoric within games that represent wars, how those could be applied to movements, social systems, and what values we learn from those games.
The only thing that the affirmative defense then is that we should apply the values of Metal Gear Solid to the executive branch. That's the only thing you're going to defend.
That's a really oversimplification of what we defend. We also defend discussions about the games, discussions about systems behind games, discussions behind assumptions that are made in the games. A lot of those things can be talked about in procedural rhetoric.
So you read a text that says, we are relevant to the topic. Metal Gear Solid 4 is an open criticism of offensive cyber operations. Do you think we should end offensive cyber operations, or do we not really take a stance on that either?
I don't think we should necessarily end offensive cyber operations. We're just saying that the affirmative is about certain portions of the topic. The affirmative is challenging executive war powers because it's a protest against it.
Who should challenge executive war powers? Us as individuals, Congress?
This debate is about whether or not they're a good idea, and whether or not they support neoliberalism, whether or not the war economy itself is a good idea.
That's fine.
The order is 3 off in case, and then he has the flash drive. Speak.
Do you want our tubs? Get your stands.
I'll take your tubs if you're willing to.
Yeah, you can have the flash drive first, man.
Thanks, Steve.
Shoot. Let's go. Here they are.
My computer does that.
Is it doing the Mac thing? Or you have to save it?
It takes forever to load down the page, and I can't tell when it's loaded.
Oh.
Besides doing this, and I really don't.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Good?
I'm good. Ricardo.
Oh, Ricardo.
Computer's stupid. CS major is stupid.
Always seems to be the case. Here you go.
Alright, is everyone ready? Alright.
First up is the shift that sets cyberspace and militarized. Now the U.S. executive branch is engaged in clandestine warfare against every other state. Yellow 30 uses held to serve the gate here at 227 offense cyber offers to one of the against the clandestine campaign that a person in this theater boarded the administration's growing against the cyber warriors has demonstrated disrupt the foreign computer network C with plans to expand the numbers in the Middle East. The administration restrictions of cyber operations in clandestine. The high to know and the folks to go to the field offices cyber operation representative evolution and policy and nuclear quarters, working against copyright drugs, including Russia, China, and Russia, China, North Korea. The budget documents they cast U.S. practicing and cyber defensive in the summer attack defense. The U.S. is moving towards the traditional opposite are unachievable to give a snapshot change the change in behavior, strategic level, right now, China, Russia, RCR, but it's the locations of terrorists in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, the Iraq and Somalia, and other human safe havens. Also, austerity has forced the U.S. transition to use the cyber deterrence instead of a nuclear deterrence. The AF critiques cyber deterrence, which would cause a rollback of our sciences, of our cyber deterrence strategy, constraints on presidential unitarianism, causes shifts back to nuclear-based deterrence. Coverage while the adversaries attempt taking steps towards war, the important that the Americans and clear government intends to capable no for shoes doctrine responders not directly the heart of our adversaries established that the adversaries that purchase U.S. on the edge of maybe somebody on policies that returns to maturity credibility should not refer to what influence and portals could deterrence capability if cyber attack is shared with the international and military doctrine when I'm starting with other strategic training options in the U.S. is up with nuclear deterrence out to Americans willing to wage all wars and strategic deterrent patrols of offensive cyber capabilities for to reach global targets to turn self up about all strategy before chance and the defense posture which likely leads to greater reliance on nuclear and cyber host of deterrence based on nuclear weapons makes nuclear war inevitable. Bill Jack 9, the nuclear war can be seen as a risk of externality nuclear deterrence against the exchange states made to do actions to use a nuclear to promote state policy far too large given the consequences of state the greatest chance of the less safe nuclear weapons come to the greatest scope to deterrence versus the use of nuclear weapons to deter everything they get everything in tune limits to nuclear also the best also the next up is the cyber deterrence goodness next up is T. The app is non-statutory restriction. That's 5 things. Says Kaiser 80 said non-statutory skills are available to Congress or like community directives. House and Senate 4 statements to direct contact with statutory devices, single purpose bids to overturn or grant alterations authority of churches and race authorization or purpose and limitation under agency compensation requirements, cultural participation requirements. Also, the app is not a judicial restriction. That would be a decision by the courts to restrict the executive. Westlaw 8 that would relate to the court's judicial action involved in unbiased decision by court judgment judicial action the rights of parties. Also resolved to note that a proposal to be enacted by law. Words in phrase 64, the definition of resolve is to express opinions or determination by a resolution or vote as it was resolved by legislator voting issue for fairness, predictability, and limits in education because they literally do not do any of those. So it's because they literally do not do any of those things and don't defend the topical plain text. Next off is the deterrence. Is that first is that U.S. cyber deterrence is strong now. Goldsmith felt because attributes still have Russia where the U.S. is capable to hold accountable without the imminent threat. The unit can conduct cyber operations due to counter cyberspace or defense has to consider this U.S. cyber operations due to attributes no some censored through tracing of the behavior is algorithms as a for cyber deterrence in this case capable of preemptive taxing the imminent cyber threats and the effective deterrence for depend on the credibility or threats to duty does not think it's adequate legal authorities and the laws bring optional safety to the extent the U.S. provision to the legal change but at the structural effort also only deterrence can solve future cyber attacks criminal the strategy can increase the chance of the major cyber attacks can prevent the cyber deterrence strategy can contribute to deterrence violation situation in readiness and defeat adversaries. The U.S. is not noticeably forceful in sensitive intentions to cyber attacks and responded that the deterrence points on the but they've had to do a significant image will power capability sufficient to the aggression by Hussein with most of it not kind of ever looked at to communicate useful power resolve off the deterrence key to preventing future attacks on nuclear power plants. There was nuclear meltdown Kessler 11 nuclear plants are adopting modern attack like the let's experience implement security non-nuclear generation of this shutdown the nuclear reactor over 2 years of the military became what's called the core melting debris island during a shutdown the Earth's malfunction came replicated by cyber attack and meltdown spots the Lord affected it the Rochford the critical reactor coming to disrupt and disable without possibility the plane cannot kill the reactor slammer could disable the reactor circulation multiple sensors the plane personnel selected to demonstrate the impact the sophisticated adversary can have on sites as Detroit's 984 cent future states having to use cyber attacks with the damage trench code safe for pursuing cyber attacks and instrument to fall onto as technical know how to that require even operators who try to monitor every connection point not know it's gonna know all of them and send their subset travel and thunders PCS and interoperable thing order to make them vulnerable to meltdowns independently public station lemon 11. Chernobyl killed 1 million hectares in great and nuclear weapons concealed within it required the missing from one reactor stated 100 voltage cannons in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. One reactor can with half a globe massive radiation fault to die. Apocalyptic event deaths died spread too much money for power would affect also meltdowns collapse the overall U.S. nuclear industry. USA Today 11 nuclear power remains at 20% of the electricity with no green attachments. Nuclear power is a plural part of the U.S. energy makes only cent Americans are compensated to the remote island. Set up the industry for decades and another year accident. Even think that U.S. nuclear industry down to zero margin fair also collapsed the nuclear power power industry causes a quick shift to coal. The impact is warming, louder, McLovin, nuclear power plant, nuclear power plants, carbon-free baseload, carbon-free baseload generation, and without the nuclear power plants, full of increasing release by the fossil fuels instead of just each other. Nuclear plants result in heavy reliance on coal-based nuclear power reactors retired. Without nuclear power, carbon dioxide emissions would rise by 20%. Also, warming causes extinction, bushel sending positive feedback resulting in oxygen depleted oceans, producing hydrogen sulfide, making damage for positive releasing methane, the effects the production of 12 degrees rise. All ice would melt in the ocean would rise. We'll see threats and species extinction, ocean acidification. Now the case flow. The act doesn't solve neoliberalism. There's no solvent term for using the MGS 4 key to break down neoliberalism. Even if it is true that Metal Gear Solid critiques neoliberalism, there's no way the act tells any of the war or conflict impacts isolated in their evidence because there's no spillover argument now. Also, the role of the ballot is evaluation of policy simulation and maximize the number of lives saved. We should never sacrifice individuals for abstract market values. Kaminsky takes the question whether some persons must be the unscathed cops to other persons. If only one truly believes that all rational beings have equal value, then the solutions to eliminate ultimately actually producing lives and vision rational things as possible. Persons have a fundamentally qualitative systems for different, sometimes given when the psychic others are focus on the value of all rational beings that equal generations that the voice that sacrifice and such to save many. Also, extinction outweighs that their impacts relevant 94 whether but from a deontological sense of obligation to form utilitarian production happens against it matters nevertheless it's presupposed by the tools because distance matters because care about this morality instead of your happiness of course existing fundamental faith cannot be outrank by any other consideration unless I care about who I am and cannot generally care about anything else to defend my own being because it's supreme assault to defendants but the human being or human appeal or persuasion. Also, rejection of U.S. power results in genocide. Galen 3. Just to be a terrible time to give up on internationalism or erect and falling to situations of democratic power must be legitimate internationalism to the that's not the international principle also implement U.S. as a short circuit unilateral based tough questions and uses of international intervention. U.S. have put more regularly to think about Afghans but Iraqis constitutional rights law enforcement infrastructure protest has a time and place but we need now politics to combine with practical pressure to self-correct punctured room friends to retreat noise linked to the protest good night to parents human rights on the ground over genocides and come to help to do us more vengeful of the empires for resentful subjects. We need more must hear global authorities know is on a foreign policy coupled with the properly scheduled no bunch of transformable yes and a grudging perfunctory after left to international law enforcement not the market marks guns. Also, neoliberalism is inevitable and solves poverty, capitalism, neoliberal growth is trickles down to marginalized population, closing the opportunity affluent and marginalized population. Neoliberalism burst at hundreds of millions of Chinese Indians and Vietnamese through liberalization lifted up poverty and like it or not, neoliberalism is here to stay. The system has become hegemonic so deeply such that the ideals are now part of the things how things really are. Also, we control uniqueness. Armed conflict is decreasing as a trend. Marshall, the extent of warfare among within states with nearly half the per second end of Cold War. The global warfare has been remaining defined due to 2007 diminished overseas years substantive peaking in the late 80s, consistent with the decline of major armed conflict and continuing increase of a number of consolidation of democratic regime. Also, extinction is not inevitable. Jihad 70 are powerful, burning with the insatiable urge for self-improvement and unparalleled processing capacity to begin to build tools to enhance self-apocalyptic. The civilization will nothing more than have leading human extinction. Extrapolation does not acknowledge the complexity of evolution. Future is not predetermined by immutable forces by shape of our values. The 21st century conspiracy gives opportunities to know the true planetary thinking. Now requires individual interdependent humans as no to the computer technology help to see the optimal levels in health of well-being, health, transgender, cognitive, physical, and institutional, geographical, cultural, linguistical, and historical boundaries, or it can help contribute to our issues, and the choice is ours.
Let's talk about this meltdown stuff.
Yeah.
What nuclear power plant uses a digital control system?
They're switching to it now. That's
really?
Yeah.
They're switching to it in the next 10 years. My brother's a part of that switch. They haven't gotten approved by the NRC, so let's try again. What nuclear power plant uses a digital control system in the status quo?
I'm obviously not sure what nuclear power plant your brother works at, but the line on the card is like...
Every nuclear power plant under the U.S. is analog.
Okay, but
right?
that's going to take some evidence.
How do you...
First,
I understand the nuclear power industry. I'm a chemical engineer. Come on.
The transition is happening now. Second of all, this evidence also says even if it's analog, it can still be hacked.
How do you hack an analog system?
I don't know.
Do you know what an analog system is?
I'm obviously not an expert in circuitry or whatever, but this Kessler evidence says it is...
An analog system doesn't use circuitry. It uses switches and mechanical systems in order to shut off when needed.
I don't think
How do you switch those with cyber operations?
Our evidence indicates that, for example,
Your evidence
for
indicates
example,
a flawed
the
understanding of
system-
the status quo. How do you
the sy-
switch those with
I mean,
cyber
if
operations?
you want to insider qualifications, the Kessler evidence is from someone who works at strategic interests at the Naval Postgraduate School.
Okay, strategic interests
He has
at-
a master's. He has a PhD. He's been
And he's also from
studied-
2011. The NRC announced that digital control systems won't be in place until 2020 at earliest.
Maybe that's the
Recently.
Maybe that's the
Does he assume
digital-
that?
Well, the fact of the matter is
Okay.
our evidence cites 2 worms that have already infiltrated computer systems. The slammer worm that
Nuclear
infected
power
Davis-
plant
yes,
computer systems?
The slammer
Right.
worm also infected computer systems at the Davis Best nuclear power plant near Ohio. And then there's another
Okay.
one. The Browns Ferry nuclear power plant demonstrates that critical reactor components could
Let's
be
talk
disrupted
about-
via cyber attack.
Let's talk about your Caliber and Lothar evidence. It's in the context, actually, yeah, it's that one. It's in the context of a no first use policy. Is the plan a no first use doctrine in offensive cyber operations?
No, but our evidence does say that a switch from cyber operations would force us to use our.
Do we ever
nuclear
say
deterrent
we
form.
say that drones are bad and unmanned machines are bad? Do we ever say that cyber defense is bad in the one I see?
You literally read a card that's like we critiques off of the cyber operations.
Yes, and that card continues to say it's about unmanned machines.
Well, no. The context of your card
Do you
is like
not-
we critique offensive cyber operations. Either you critique offensive cyber operations and you solve your neoliberal impact, or you don't. You don't solve anything.
I think you're missing the point of the one I see. Let's talk about this nuclear deterrence bad scenario area. Is the U.S. going to disarm entirely right now?
We're not going to disarm entirely, but we are.
Where's the
not-
uniqueness
we're not
argument
emphasizing
then?
our nuclear deterrence strategy now because we're using cyberspace.
Yeah, but isn't our nuclear deterrence strategy something we don't emphasize and we implicitly have because we have nukes?
Wait, what? No, our argument is that that the plan. That
Is the
by-
US
by
seeking more
implementing
nukes
cyber
now?
ops, We go back to our.
Is the
nuclear-
U.S. seeking more nukes now?
No.
Okay, so why is the nuclear deterrence impact unique?
What? No, our argument is that we're using cyber weapons now. You trade off with that, or you decrease cyber ops.
Don't think there's zero sum, but okay. The DAs don't really have one, but we should also just I'll find deterrence good in a minute. First one. First DA is offensive cyber operation. No first use. Yeah, so just like pretty much you get everything on case, including the salty argument. You get it tells. Let me find that.
Dude, what is this, dude? I feel like there has to be at least some explanation.
Here's the analysis of this code, though. The analysis like is if nuclear weapons exist, then nuclear force possible. It doesn't change. Is that it?
The 1AC?
No, it's on the website.
When you upload your speech, I'll just add it in for you. I have it here now. Or actually, go to the 1AC. What? Just put it in for you. Okay. Okay.
That's for saying shift DA.
Yeah. But also just like read that way. Also like this is descriptively set code and code turns to be here in stats row. So I should check.
How the differential molecular solids.
It's uploading. Yeah, it's 513.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll go grab that.
It's gonna go T, shift DA, their second DA place.
Yeah, T shifts section PHD. Here.
T.
Can we call the second DA the nuclear DA? Or something like that?
I was calling it the deterrence DA.
Oh, sorry. Scratch that nuclear deterrent.
Sure.
So
What do you actually
what do we want to call it?
It's T shift DA, deterrence DA, and then you can call your case flow whatever you want. I don't mean to simplify it.
We'll
by
call it
calling
case.
I'm gonna call it case.
Can we call it like the liberal neo?
Or I could call it case. We can just call your DAs DA1, DA2.
You can do that. We won't be doing that.
Alright. Everyone ready? When we meet, we are in the direction of the top. We endorse again to discuss the negatives of offensive harass, cyber operations, drones, disrupt the way executive engage the war. Believing there should be restrictions to counter interpretation, statutory restriction, our controls, limits imposed by legislative battle, black ops, legal dictionary 13, statutory jurisdiction, limits, orders that have been imposed on active agricultural legislation, result is reduced by mental analysis, random house 11, should indicate statutory OED in 2011. There should be some increase in restriction. However, we don't have to defend the plan implementation. The next definition begs the question of role in the resolution which comes before policy, role the ballots to endorse. The team, the best advanced procedure, rhetoric in the debate is supposed to they impose great boundaries and jump sides of the field debating begs the question of what the framework means. All of our impact terms are going to apply for first substantive impacts argument or precursor to determine the quality of the ground they lose regarding the points or produce a useful discussion which we can never solve problems. This both debate and education limits our arbitrary. The debate is always one to one more, so until with the form we lose them until they get to our successful attraction. Predictability is on the house of debate said the secure advantage prior to ground reducibility could be caught off guard and reasonability. Question should be not who's interprets best for debate, but its app interpretation make debate impossible for the neighbor. Otherwise, competing interpretation leads to race to the bottom of the app would always lose and onto the DA. We're going to outweigh neoliberalism leads to extinction of extend rather than 12 indicates that neoliberalism enables the creative destruction of division, labor, social relation, wealth, precision, technological ways of life, thought, reproductive habits to the land and habits of the heart, the economic balance that causes its destruction, as wartime common unemployment, immersion, malnutrition, or lessons with the just cost of mental life, reduces crisis, so jeopardizes the military, lashes them out again, the cycle triggers every impact, suspension of policy, legitimism, overexploitation of extra research, with limits and never support to ecological, including human security, culminating extinction, as small size, we also value life impact and makes disposal of those who are have not to a state that embraces torture, war, and violence, cultivates culture, appearance, suspicions, marginalization, individual political significance. That was Burrow 2008 from the 1AC. We also don't actually defend a policy implementation. They didn't read that we have to defend a policy implemented by the USFG. That was a mistake made by the affirmative, by the negative. We answer their role about arguments on case. This also is the type of ideology criticized. So we have to have this forward type of offensive cyber operation present. Is the same type of neoliberalist policies they affirmative criticize and links to the neoliberalist impacts. They didn't read any type of defense against our neoliberalism being good or being good, which means we have a lot of weight here. Also, on to the next DA.
Also, their evidence is in the context of a no first use policy rather than a reduction of deterrence.
No first use instead of reduction and deterrence.
Even if the act is a reduction of deterrence, means it doesn't link.
Even if we're a reduction in deterrence, it means it doesn't link. On a second DA, we're currently using analog, which is not going to be a switch. Our evidence isn't really good on this. You also don't have, again, we don't have a policy which is going to no link. This also, plants don't blow up like bombs. Hogan 9, a nuclear power plant can't explode like atomic bomb. The detonation mechanism has to be below the extreme position. A power plant can exactly why. A most of the within the estimate is about the same as a major city being hit by a meteorite going across. Even to happen in simulation indicate that it would be the calamity most imagined is being killed and not melt at the reactor would have sputter island solidify. From the structure of the British test and experimental reactor to every conceivable physical piece of the core cooled itself down, and that was a statistical prediction work out is about 400 fatalities per meltdown, no risk of meltdown, new reactors, and no Chernobyl body 10. During the first 6 decades of nuclear age, fewer than 100 people died as a result of nuclear power plant accidents. Have a new nuclear plant contain all shut-off mechanisms that have to do with the odds of a meltdown exponentially, even in worst-case scenario. Some also have the ability to burn, spend fuel rods, coal and petroleum. They're a lot deadly, and radiation put out by the coal plant for that of a nuclear power and ice age coming now. CO2 key prevent and distillation Martian while the real danger facing humanity is not warning, but likely the new ice age. A new ice age would be catastrophic for civilizations separated in a relationship like the one we are now living in. Increasing carbon is ice and concentration, but the we have now reached levels of recovery into the optimum level to reach solar cycle behavior in 2022. Because 8% of cooling always all impacts White House the return of ice would be the biggest test of facing manifestation of the Northern Hemisphere would be presence of Europe, Asia, and Canada, the United States, Alberta, and Habitable know that technology can stop the ice ever population life among us and believe in the science of the solar that take into greenhouse gases and already filmed that happens to the first million of new glacier. Your outskip the living sense of the living observation versus that we say the great new glass to continue inevitably to extinction and on the case.
Actually, refresh the document, read one of the impact defense cards I just put up.
I read.
To warming.
I read both of the cards you put up.
To warming, I put 2 new. Do it later. Just go to case first.
No extinction period played denied Carter 11 the predicted increasing inclement high and recorded antibiotic communities that remain resilient records over phosphorus records will when temperatures increase in sea level sources. There's little evidence for risks due to warming of phosphorus records that keep resilience. No extinction, no abrupt change. Barrett 7 at climate change is not threatened to sharply human species about persistently down and how to other recent cannabis climate change. It's not simple, but change will take until the given time just about time sound like the awareness on case. They first off said that we don't have to but we don't need to assume by analyzing remnant indicates that we can solve the neoliberalism and solution. It'll be the starting point for creating these discussions to be able to take down the system. Also, role of the balance of George seeing the best advances procedural rhetoric in the debate. We're going to give a lot of there's a few reasons why we should prefer this. First off is the video games are better for decision making. They get to be involved in simulation decisions so spectators while avoiding a moral standstill. Scholesky and 13 templates of the game was important for immersion decision making concept of the simplest video game works as a nuclear armor detail. If not experience video games allow players to counter results without counter engage active rather than decision spectators, they still can simulate cost benefit calculation allows the video games to counter the idea that the decision being a process experience by imposing some cost on players. In Bioshock, there's a recurrent dilemma whether the rescue little sister harvest their bodies for Adam. The game makes the evil course of action more tempting and narrative plot experience because it makes the player control that action more powerful. Can you put the Bogos card about political discourse? And the current methods for representing public policy fails video games allows for better representation of issues. Bogos sits through prevent procedural term video games to highly compressed version of better by embodied experiences. Both of our citizens policy may train embodied experiences. Public policy is very difficult under current method for doing so either to me or to be the procedural always remains so different objection or potential better for the two or for the procedural policy normally written in mono spoken discourse video games offer a promising way to foreground the complexity of political issue without overwhelming the layperson political issue or complications of it and integrate with one other video games offer a new perspective on the political issues and they are effective at representing a complex system onto the utilization impact of this farm is ethics and this is a consideration for argument 3 arguments Mason social those rendered have nots that were materially stated versus torture war and violence cultivate culture fear and suspicion is marginalized individual political subjects and invisible injustice and ethical obligation risks of the rejecting loyalty class it's domination of social class structure involving human suffering comes before ensuring certain survival Callan 85 is responsible for preconditional human achievements of no other right to make special so without the promise of right to life how will to be also upon the general being without destroying everything human beings which to make them worthy of the crisis for of human degradation there is no moral reason why an effort should be made to ensure that survival in neoliberalism and violence are extremely intertwined violence is a reflection and expression of capitalist prayer as well the olives to the confidence of which an extent high law orders and socialism could recur the neoliberalization is the integral part of the moment of violence and capacity to create social imperial record the emissions mark didn't increase the nickel under the neoliberalism other one is the income about to mutually constitute if one is about the upon right plan and difference of either refers to the domination of both and encouragement to drop the causal approach and consider about the inequality together as an closed organizing system and this is systemic impact individuals are justified come out of these on a daily basis versus their systemic impacts are more realistic to solve and they see we have to look at they have to look at the distinction first but I think we meet this the ellipsis is pretty damn bad enable creative destruction division labor I did a lot of the Impact analysis on the disadvantage, so I don't think I have to do it again. That indicates how neoliberalism leads to extinction and risk taken by the government, and this type of ideology is bad risk taken by the government. Increasing overall utility will severely compromise the individual result in fatality shortage exists. Risk is quite unlikely to ensuring identical individual short that occurs even for conflict that are starting to occur with someone in the medium. It's something probably with risk and it is relatively small all. It's suffered a substantial perhaps a risk of being imposed on individuals who have not consented to the meaningful sense of government coercion threatens individual freedom renders morality meaningless. All the year 2000 greater the coercion of the strength of the likely it will likely be considered the actionary action bonds plus more responsible have to assign to each person although will company to consider share values and the common good to this extreme that without individual or free to make choices and moral responses of no meaning was force of laws beyond sure the values how they to be honored individuals lives and just should have a level of control for legal coercion we believe for more responses they say snake shot with neoliberalism leads to snake shot again I already made this argument and neoliberalism fosters inequality culture or something rapid individually ultimately culminating genocide and war makes it inevitable this answers that argument too girl 2006 neoliberalism encouraged ideological economic vision that promote a unique version of fashion essentially the structural relationship between the state and the economy hierarchies concentration power and relative if you have the elements the most elements of rapid and individual destroys the welfare state and any cars large numbers of the social population economic disadvantage large segment of the lower and middle class reduce the entire common pauperization sure in the public good private goods and needs of the corporate and private sector the only sort of investment illegal ideology produces religion arts exacerbates the sense of person poverty and economic healthcare actually part of the inner city and growing inequality where they say rejecting will lead to genocide over the same ideology that's saying that we shouldn't reject it because it's going to lead to problems of the same ideology that exists in the status quo and has caused us to not be able to question it and is going to reassert the neoliberalism state which is one is causing people to be invisible that wasn't relevant to lead to inevitable extinction that was the Mossadegh from 2010 evidence. Did I miss anything that they didn't say?
Violent conflict is decreasing.
Violent conflict is decreasing. This is again, yes, maybe even if it's decreasing right now, it doesn't mean it's not going to increase in the future in the neoliberal state. It's always it's always inevitable in the neoliberal state and. Video games and procedural rhetoric can better represent what political forms can focus. Video games also be created to make explicit games of the way material concepts of the Illinois Federal Public Commission game director representative style public publicity the procedural for each policy was setting up so much of the smallest popular rules of the public for policy should often say even take out one of the significant ways that can make rhetoric in relation to take back making steps towards those are scores of inputs or signing other games.
We'll take some tech time.
Where'd you stop there? Oh, you actually got the
other games.
Other games.
Start with
What?
Yeah.
I'll let you just get there. I want to correct whatever this was one. I want to do what it's right.
That's fine. Can you get me this first?
You're going to have to read all this to get to this argument.
Okay.
Anywhere.
Try to find it.
What?
Try to find it.
Why is it
Part
off?
EA is the framework.
Oh, okay. Oh, I just got the cartoon one to see. It's fine, man. Oh, no, the one I didn't get to. Oh, I thought you said it was a good one.
Yeah. I'll get you this.
40 seconds. Here, you want to write that down? Here, I got one for you. So, how much do y'all have?
5:15.
15?
13.
Yeah, okay. 5.
15's fine.
I'll put 14 for y'all. And we got 9:20.
Sure.
Alright, sorry about that.
Alright. Talk about, I guess, topicality first. Your counter-interpretation is that is statutory limitations. How is the app a statutory limitation?
It has to take into account also should and resolve, which is probably one of the problematic things that comes from the negative.
No. My only question is why are you a statutory limitation?
We
Just
think there should
explain
be
to
a
me the we
statutory
meet to your
restriction.
counter-interpretation.
We think that there should be a statutory restriction to stop the
Do you defend the implementation of the statutory
No,
restriction?
we've
Do
already
you,
made it
so
already.
how does the affirmative lead to a statutory restriction?
We don't think we have to.
Okay, your entire so your argument is that a statutory restriction is good because it solves neoliberalism, but you have no solvency arguments for
I don't
that?
think any argument from the affirmative says statutory restriction leads
Okay.
to destruction of neoliberalism.
So why should there be a statutory restriction then? What is your argument for why there should be a statutory restriction?
We think that it would be beneficial in comparison to status quo.
Beneficial for what
to have
reason?
restrictions on the executive.
Who should impose those restrictions?
I don't think it matters.
We look at the procedures first.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, this is your own counter-interpretation, but okay. So what's
I understand what you're
spillover?
saying, sorry.
Okay, so if in isolation we take your word for it that neoliberalism or your critique of neoliberalism spills over, what solvency evidence do you have that substantiates that claim?
I think almost every single card in the 1AC indicates by analyzing, critiquing video games, we're able to.
So by analyzing video games in this round, why does that break down the larger structure of neoliberalism to solve all of your war impacts, all of the environment impacts you're in the 1AC? Why does this specific criticism and using Metal Gear Solid 4 in this specific instance spill over to solve the broader neoliberalism problem that your evidence isolates?
I don't think we have to win that we solve all of neoliberalism to win the round.
So what do you have to win then? You keep saying like we don't have to win this, that's irrelevant. What actually is relevant, and can you attach some cards to this?
Yeah, procedural rhetoric, the role of the ballot.
So procedural.
What does procedural rhetoric mean?
Procedural rhetoric is a term that means the analysis and examination of processes.
Okay, analysis. You say that doesn't have to spill over to broader neoliberalism. So what does it actually do then?
Sorry?
What does procedural rhetoric actually do if it doesn't spill over?
It allows us to analyze the processes.
And what is the
behind these
value?
systems.
What is the value of that analysis?
Our evidence indicates that by using procedural rhetoric to analyze these underlying systems,
Your
it allows us to
your
solve
argument
That's
is like
the
we
relevant
should
part.
analyze because we can analyze. What is the end
I
point to that
didn't
analysis?
say analyze twice, but that's okay.
So what is the purpose of analysis? You have 20 seconds to explain this.
The purpose
I think
of analysis
I'd
is
be
that
a-
we can start taking down neoliberalism.
We see alternatives when we're
Yes.
analyzing these.
And
video
what
games.
alternatives does your evidence isolate?
Our evidence isolates that the
Your evidence
process
doesn't
of
isolate
analysis
alternatives?
leads to alternatives. We don't
That's
have to
fine.
talk about those
We'll take
alternatives.
some
we just
prep
have
time.
to say that lead
We
to good
have
alternatives.
we have 9:20.
Yeah, go through that.
Dude, I'll do the.
Keep this.
No, it's okay. I understand. So.
Or just reading it.
I'm backlogged, so
You only use something to do it.
and I can't.
I don't want you to do it.
This is yours. That's fine.
You can't.
Do you want, like, I can close it on 3 minutes on the other. Is that fine?
And then here's the last one.
Do you want me to just do cheat them?
Yeah.
Can you also deal with like util and
Yeah.
dude, I'm gonna do
You should at the top be like, you should be at the top like, their competition gives us a link to our DAs, but we don't need it, so we should lose our team.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Like if it's like we can go for the diss because we can just concede this arc. They can't take it back. But if we win, they don't need it, then they lose. Make sense?
Here's the rest of your stuff.
Alright, so I started that from 10, so we used 151. So 150 from 1. So 710 left. No, 730 left.
Yeah, one time I used a marker on a smartboard. You know what a smartboard is, Nick?
Yeah.
One time in middle school, I think it was, or high school, I went up to the smartboard and just used a marker on it. And those are like, you know,
Yeah, you can't erase it.
they're like expensive as fuck. So, how much did you say we had?
7:30 or 7:30.
Let me take 5 seconds off. Yeah, I'm taking it on like decreasing in case that's the only reason.
Okay.
Okay. 725. And unfortunately for y'all, no.
forgot to unmute the stream for the 2NC.
Yeah, so you saved it as a Chrome document. I don't know how you did that. I hope it works.
Just
Alright, well, I don't know how you did that, but it works.
For some reason, that's the default on my computers to save it as an HTML. Pretty sure you can change that. Yeah, I think I can too.
What the heck?
Yeah, it's a Chrome document, isn't it? It works. I mean, mine opened.
Whatever.
Did it work?
I'll just roll with this, I guess.
Can I have it?
Yeah.
If you want to read, I mean, if you can reopen it as a doc, but if you
Oh,
want to
I can read it here. It's fine.
It's in your web browser?
Yeah.
Mine opened up in the...
It looks formatted, so it's okay.
Mine opened up in the Word document.
There's highlighting. You can right click it and open it with Word probably.
I'm gonna try and do that. Open with Word.
Where is my foot?
It's gonna okay.
Alright, y'all ready?
What are you looking for?
I left my clothes in here. Alright. Good?
Shift is said not going for we'll continue that you don't affect our nuclear arsenal. Now I'll go to the reason now go to the topic. I'll answer reasonability here first. That you are not reasonable because there's really no topic. There's really no topic justification for your plan. There's really no topic justification for your plan. You also destroyed a bit because every Afghan can win rounds without having ever who talk about the topic and then would never be prepared for that. Proofs are reasonable. Also, if you want a better model for debate through competing with your patience, then you vote negative. Also now that it turns to that first step warming anyways in terms of neoliberalism, their neoliberalism impacts our Bush evidence says that warming increases sea levels, kills biodiversity, and causes ocean acidification. Vote neg on magnitude. We have the only evidence that is definitive on the extinction level impact. Their evidence doesn't rise to that level, and warming would cause poverty and structural violence, would cause poverty and the structural violence that there is talks about because it would destroy resources, kill agriculture, and cause sea level rise. Also, the first argument he makes is that we use analog now. Professor Kessler evidence says that this is wrong, and that things like the slammer worm infiltrated nuclear power plants and almost caused a meltdown. None of his argument is actually supported by evidence. A meltdown is possible because the saboteurs could shut down cooling, pumps would, and also disable warning systems that would alert the personnel that something bad is going on. They say no link first. They're in a double bind. Either A, they don't link and they don't solve anything and they don't solve anything because they wouldn't restrict war powers and they can't solve neoliberalism, or B they do link and we have a dissent on topic how to use specifically endorse statutory restrictions, and then you said we should do that. That is the link to the dissent. You say no meltdowns first. Yes, there is a meltdown. Yes, there is a meltdown. It's irrelevant if it can't blow up like a bomb because our impact evidence indicates that a meltdown would still cause radiation. The limit evidence indicates that radiation will spread all over the globe and cause extinction. Also, we don't have to win the meltdowns cause extinction. Just that a meltdown would happen, and that would collapse the entire nuclear industry because there would no longer be public confidence in nuclear power, and that would cause a quick shift to coal and rapid warming. Also, they say ice age group at first was warming shut down the ocean, give air belt that triggering the next ice age carbon for global warming can't produce enough water from carbon melting ice caps and glaciers and flows into the northern Atlantic. Will shut down the Gulf Stream. Scientists drilling ice for samples. We're able to discover transit surprises like weather becomes very. Weather usually took 2 to 3 years. If the Great can bear about what South Atlantic winter was set in all of Europe and Siberia would never with those regions would become uninhabitable. These switch ice ages, nothing goes wrong, but warming nothing will happen sooner rather than later. Also, it's happened. Warming is what put us on the brink. ABC News Brigham and 7. New studies find that the Earth is a ice age result of warming over the Greenland ice sheet might cause of meltwater to change with saline water can because the Great can bear about. Well, then you have a new ice age in Europe, and new ice age in the northern hemisphere is not far off. Also, we've already burned enough carbon to save off the ice age. Emissions reductions won't help. AFP7 up to 1 tenth of the carbon dioxide currently emitted. The results will be the same if you burn the present rates or the moderate rates are set the same. Eventual ice age prevention result. The next argument is that there's no impact factor warming versus that warming is real, anthropogenic, it will cause extinction. This evidence is fantastic for their 12. The carbon dioxide has increased at unprecedented rate. No data set so that man can find 900 years of temperature data to climate for 2 through 10,000 years. The magnitude of the warming is so much. Guys, got the thing. The Mars himself survived all previous warming episodes. Yet it survived all other sheets of vanishing glaciers are retreating. Then let's see, rising 10 times per weekend. See the big picture. The climate and ice courses is not within the normal range of variability. There was much small fluctuation, much less than the curve when the amount of heat the sun price has been decreasing. There's no one to rate particles, no one to volcanic events or long-term events. Methane is powerful, but there are 200 times more carbon dioxide. Mark the carbon dioxide also for all variables and qualifications. They are reading evidence from staff writers. We have evidence from people who have PhDs and who have actually studied climate science for a long time now. Go to the case. Well, the first now case. The first argument I will send is the first argument is the useful argument. The misgivings indicates that the role of the ballot is the evaluation of policy simulation to maximize the life saves. We should never sacrifice individuals for abstract market values. The extinction now is all their value life arguments today. Do not have a single comparative 57, which indicates that value life outweighs extinction. Just evidence says that value life is a good thing. If life is a prerequisite to value life, could be because you must be living before you can assign value to it. That's also the Galvin evidence. Also, they've conceded the Gitlin evidence, which indicates that rejection of U.S. power causes genocide. The Gitlin evidence indicates that our power projection overseas and neoliberalism overseas ultimately facilitates rights and ultimately facilitates democratic rights and solving poverty. For example, which turns your entire impact evidence. It also says that interventions would help solve genocide, which turns your impact, and also proves Also, in intuition, there's no answer to the pipe evidence, which indicates that neoliberalism is inevitable and solves poverty. The pipe evidence indicates that globally neoliberalism is inevitable. For example, in places like India, Vietnam, and China, and that the app could never break that down. The app could never break that down. There's no answer in the 2AC. Hold them to the 2AC answer because the block strategy was predicated on that. Also, the block strategy was predicated on that. Proves they can't solve neoliberalism globally. There's no impact to the app. You vote neg on presumption.
How much time? 5:14? Okay.
Can you get me the card you wanted to read on policy making? Just saying that we get it first. That how they go through these things instead of going through institutional impacts.
They didn't answer.
Yeah. Oh no, he read that in the 1C. Oh. just upload it and I'll just
Sorry,
grab it.
Sorry, upload.
Okay.
Can you stop that?
Yeah.
Stop that.
How much do I have left?
213.
213?
I'd rather read it off my laptop, so.
Can you pass me the subs? It's case disadd T. With T, structure got kind of messed up in the block, so I'm gonna go to the overview first and the line by line, try to follow that.
So, just there.
Yeah.
You need to raise it higher.
I know. We're running a cable too. Test. Alright. Audio's back. Are you ready?
Yep.
And sorry, I keep getting these things out of order for some reason. There we go. It's probably in order, and I moved it. No answer to roll the ballot. You should frame your debate by looking at procedural rights. The warning sees looking at the procedural rights of medical software and applying those how they're anti-neoliberal, at least reveal what neoliberalism is doing, how it's hiding impacts of impacts of unemployment, poverty, and evisceration by focusing on we're only going for discourse portions of the warning meaning that by revealing these issues we reveal different impacts and focus on different things. It also means that you don't evaluate this before you
evaluate the issues of nuclear war and U.S. going to genocide because there's no actual implementation or destruction of neoliberalism. There's just a revelation of what neoliberalism does. They valuing procedural rhetoric first means you only look at the values of Metal Gear Solid 4. It also turns on the topicality. Arguments because they're based on the idea of USFG doing an action, but not the idea of approaching a problem by approaching the procedures. Means all these framework stuff is an impact to their topicality. Extend their spectatorship. This shows the evidence that say we don't evaluate simulations correctly if we focus on plain-based debate because we only make a decision because we see something bad. We don't actively make a decision to see the contrary, like you do in Bioshock when you actively decide to kill little sister in order to gain the benefits of war resources. Redmond Evans also says that our focus in war and our discursive practices within debate are what's necessary to challenge neoliberalism, or at least reveal what's going on and think of alternatives. And current political discourse fails. Only video games that use this procedural radical best locus for discussion of political problems, all ubiquitous mistakes. The central role of contemporary politics breathe new life, otherwise bankrupt political discourse. Restructuring is necessary because citizens assume language and its characters are neutral. The politics little purchase of moral conceptual system underwrite verbal written political utterances themselves. Most weak told even though the conceptual system perhaps the most promising future political role of video games will start to help citizens take out precisely the challenge. Video games are the only medium of mass appeal across many ages, demographic, social, ethnic backgrounds that rely on conceptual framework. Particular political interests have effectively colonized the media. Video games remain indefinite about their political bent, but video games might offer the most salient looks for a discussion of how we think about political problems. Also, there's conceded complexity disadvantage to their role to ballot or their form of simulation. When we look at simulations in terms of ends, we tend to forget about the processes or intricacies of what leads to those ends. Meaning that focusing on saving amounts of lives is the wrong question. The right question is how you get the process or what part of that procedure happens. Or evidence says that Metal Gear Solid 4 provides that type of procedure.
The rest of their arguments assume implementation. We're talking about discourse and neoliberalism and debate, and how that discourse has taken over debate. That's what our Redmond Evans about. Go to the dissad. We'll take you on extend across 282 that we don't pass political policy. Also, their arguments don't make sense with our role about because the ends of nuclear war or warming from their impact chains are what complexity dissad's talking about. Topicality. All these arguments back the question framework across by the spectatorship, dissad, and complexity disadvantage here. Debated. We debate. He says we should debate about we debate about what parts of the executive can be changed. We say we should debate about we should debate about the procedures within politics and how those what we learned from those procedures. They say limits dissad, but spectatorship outweighs because it leads because when we become spectators in policy debate, we don't gain the portable skills to make decisions in everyday lives. Even if the debate's a little bit harder, it's better to make debate a more meaningful activity by focusing on procedural rhetoric. They say we could read a video game simulation with drones, but that's looking at the wrong direction of the affirmative. That's not a topical version of the affirmative. Something that we can talk about. They say that we sidestep the topic and only focus on values, but we focus on procedures that lead those values and what we learn from procedures of games that might challenge the executive's powers. The Metal Gear Solid is a metaphor for the U.S. The Patriots are obviously not the USFG, but the Patriots are a controlling power like the USFG. The world is obviously fictitious, but what we learn from the procedures and military proceedings, we see that's not really different from what the world is explaining. They say stable ground is necessary, but you do get stable ground. You can defend that drones or unmanned vehicles are good, and you can defend that current political rhetoric are good. They say value debates rap because the debate community is inherently liberal, but you debate about procedures within the affirmative. We are not telling you to say neoliberalism good. We're telling you to talk about Metal Gear Solid 4 and those values within Metal Gear Solid 4 or other video games or procedures within U.S. policy. They say it's a vexed question of policy. Redmond Evans says we only need discourse. They say it's not applicable to real world. It's already answered. Extend across our character interpretation. It's just limits imposed on. It's just limits imposed. We meet this because we tell our evidence
is about what we learned from Metal Gear Solid 4 and what we think limits on the executive should be. When we play Metal Gear Solid 4, we see that these limits are necessary in order to change the way we think about war and the way we approach war. I mean, even if we don't meet this, a roll of the ballot argument comes first, and it's just a reason why the competing interpretations is arbitrary and not something that's necessary. All this just begs the question: framework is something that's conceded. If they don't answer a roll of the ballot argument that comes before any questions to topicality, because it's not about what we should or shouldn't be debating. It's about how we should be debating and a roll of the ballot talks about. It's also the quality of debate. Debates become vacuous when we focus on impacts and counterplans and dissents that don't really make sense.
So we have 6:15.
You're in the bathroom?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you need me to type stuff while you're over there? Actually, I'll type something up.
Sure. I've got my iPod. You can type something.
Here, Matt. I think we can do speech and put it on the file so we can
Just going
co-author it.
Okay. Doesn't sound right.
No, yeah, that's like up to the top. Like,
It's in Team Types, right?
just trying to get to that.
Yeah, give it a minute. It was just created.
Just team tubs or like all team tubs?
I think it's just Team Tubs. Yeah. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick, actually.
Did you bring something?
What? Yeah,
Okay.
it's stuff in there.
case then T.
I don't know what happened when you uploaded whatever the heck that was, but it was really weird and we should try not to do it again.
Document 22.
Right.
Document 22 scares me mad. Alright, sorry.
Yeah, it's case then T, but my phone's. Oh, there we are. Okay. 6 notes for the speech.
It's in my phone.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't hate, don't do that. Alright.
It's the Georgia Tech sass right there.
The role of the ballot arguments first. Framework is an answer to the role of ballot. They say that procedural rhetoric is the only thing that should be evaluated, but we say that procedural rhetoric can be evaluated, but it has to be tied to specific restriction policies. The framework is the role of ballot arguments that says it's not who debates procedures, but instead, but it's instead a question of whether what restrictions the USFG should increase and whether or not that's a good idea. Whether or not that's a good idea, that would be more on the framework debate. Second argument is that the USFG doesn't act. Yes, we understand that our discussion in this debate obviously doesn't lead the USFG to actually implement those policies, but having that as a focal point is a good thing because it allows us to talk about specific alternatives to the status quo, which is what our office is going for, which says that not only isolating a problem is important, but then saying how we remedy that problem is the second step that's good for education. The data affirmative doesn't allow for it because all they have to do is to apply a perspective to a topic, a criticism to a topic, but we say that you have to apply that criticism to the topic in order to justify change, and that point of change is what allows for debates to happen over whether or not that change is effective, which is the entirety point of the debate. They say that their next they read a card about video games and policy. This card is a negative card. It says that we do not understand political problems, and we can better understand political problems by attempting to apply video games to specific political problems, which is what the framework does. They don't allow for that because all they have to do is apply video games to ideas or topics or use video games as metaphors, but this evidence indicates that tying to political problems is necessarily important. Their next argument, now, we are not going to win this debate on framework. We're going to win this debate on zero sovereignty of the affirmative, and you vote negative on presumption. They have conceded twice they tell you that neoliberalism is inevitable. They conceded in the 2AC and in the 1AR. You should not allow any new arguments. You should not even carve all card after the debate because this is just bad debating skills. They have conceded the argument that it is globally institutionalized. The systems that support neoliberalism are too great. It's basically like this. Those in power right now don't want to get rid of neoliberalism because they benefit from the structure of a system that give them the power to status quo. Those who want to get rid of neoliberalism have no power, which is the reason why they want to get rid of it in the first place. This is just a generic sovereignty argument as to why neoliberalism is inevitable because of the systems that it creates, which they say are so necessarily powerful. The second argument here is that they don't solve neoliberalism, even though it is inevitable. There are a couple of reasons here. First of all, that procedural rhetoric does jack shit to remedy the problem of neoliberalism. The cross-section of the 2AC proves this. Nikhil asked the question, okay, you do procedural rhetoric, you apply video games and the merits of Metal Gear Solid to the issue of neoliberalism, then what happens? They're like, oh, we have a different mindset. But they're like, oh, but what do we do with that different mindset? What policies do we change? How do we break down neoliberalism? They're like, oh, we don't need to win with that. They even answer our argument that says that you don't spill over in the 2AC by saying, that's fine, we don't spill over, we just apply this mindset, which means that they don't change any of the structures that are in place, which means that even if they went neoliberalism is a bad thing, they don't have any advantage because they don't resolve any bit of it. The second argument is from the framework flow. It's that imposing values does nothing. Even if they're able to be like, we impose values on the EXO, or we impose values and say that neoliberalism is a bad thing, that is obviously not resolving the problem. That like be me getting up here in the 1AC and being like, hey, we think that we should not value racism, or we think that we should not value gender inequality, and instead we should value equality. Obviously, that's the first step to resolving those issues, but you still have to implement specific material changes in order to get to those. You obviously don't just get them, garner them solvency, which is what they were trying to do. The third argument is that they imagine solvency. They say that we should restrict the president in a way that decreases the neoliberal powers, but our argument is that is the specific debate that they have to necessarily prove in order to warrant your ballot, because that they can't just fiat solvency and say that Obama should simply stop being so imperialistic, or Obama should stop being so neoliberalist. They have to address the specific ways in which they do so. Presumption means you vote for Emory. The act has to prove that they endorse something that is good. One, neoliberalism is not solvable, which means that even if it has a big impact, the act does nothing to remedy it, and it should not be a focus of our discussion because it is here to say. The second is that even if neoliberalism should be removed, the act does not resolve it because of the reasons listed above. All of these are also star reasons why you should default to our framework, because it proves that their method of approaching problems does jack shit to actually resolve the problems in the first place. T.
They can see the topical version of the affirmative. They answered one of them, but not the better one, which is that to use the game Metal Gear Solid in the analysis of video games to prove why we should implement a specific policy that decreases the executive power with cyber operations. All the reasons why discussion of video games are good, all the reasons why the specific game of Metal Gear Solid is good, and all the reasons why the value of the Metal Gear Solid applies to neoliberalism is accessed by our framework because it's accessed even better because it makes them translate the lessons learned from the game of Metal Gear Solid and apply it to the real conditions that exist in our government. They say that obviously the metaphor speaks for itself. It's not so obvious for me. I don't know who Foxhound is. I don't know who DARPA is. I can't simply play a video game and then understand how that applies to the real world. What we should be doing is applying that to specific policies and ideas for change in the world so that we can understand how video games can translate into effective policy change, which is what our framework allows for. A second thing is the impact of the framework, which is that we internally turn your impacts of neoliberalism. The only way to break down neoliberalism is by proposing specific alternatives to the status quo system, such as how to break down neoliberalism, how to check Obama on the authority of the president. The first step, simply by saying that we should get rid of neoliberalism, you don't do anything. You have to actually propose change, and we have debates about that change in order to better understand how neoliberalism affects our everyday life and how it permeates through policies, etc. We also internally turn your arguments about video game studies that was above because they can only be better understood if they're actually applied to specific policies. Lastly, we have an external impact of ground and class and debate. Even if they win that they are the most educational, they are simply have debates about who can find the best academic perspective to apply to the topic. There's no ground in this round or ground in their topic because we have no stable focus for class. There's no ground in this round proven by the fact that they're like, oh, the ground you get is that you get cyber ops bad. That's the only ground you get. We read our cyber ops bad just that they're like, oh, the plan doesn't actually happen. We don't actually effectuate any change. Proves in round abuse is the reason to vote them down because we couldn't actually engage them on any substance because they simply shift out of what they defend. The only way to tie them to something that the negative can actually argue against is by tying them to a specific policy. Line debate. They say that it's about the procedures that are within politics. Our argument is that you use that to justify policy and that procedure itself does nothing. They say spectatorship. They say spectatorship, but our argument is that using government as a focal point is necessarily good. They say Metal Gear Solid is a metaphor. We access that metaphor better. They say stable ground. They don't access any stable ground because that was proven by this debate. I don't need to spend more time here. They say that limits are necessary. That's our argument. They say competing interpretations are arbitrary. Not enough time spent here. If you think our model for debate is better than theirs for addressing the impacts that they address, you should obviously endorse our model debate over theirs.
Oh, sorry, time.
There's no stable. I think that should be the focus of this video. Reviewing the discursive portions. Oops. I added some analysis of the spectatorship portion. What?
I do have force and that's most
Save it first. Wait, what?
It's gonna be half fancy. Only going for discursive parts of the affirm means we don't have to solve neoliberalism, just access, critiquing, analyze, and be able to impact the debates to allow the neoliberalism problem to exist in our discussions. That's all our 1AC affirmatives is Redmond evidence indicates we need to do. We don't have to access actually solving neoliberalism. We just need to make the problem visible to the community and be able to discuss about it. No state rolled about from negative means you go to the affirmative. Rolled about is endorse the team of best advances for procedural rhetoric and debate by analyzing political medical software, the affirmative analyze the processes and procedures underlay the neoliberal system. The negative does nothing to affect this. The ranks the definitions, the question of role in the resolution, which comes for policies. They're saying that we have to have USFG action as a focal point. I don't understand where this is coming from. They read no definition on USFG. They have definitions about restriction and definitions about resolve. Nowhere does they say that we have to use USFG policy besides the roll about that was in the one NC that wasn't throughout the block. That wasn't throughout the block, and you shouldn't give weight to this. So you have to see that by using procedural rhetoric, this allows us to reveal the impacts that are occurring in the status quo. We have to understand those are here. This turns all their top are the only impact coming out. This turns there. So we have three disadvantages to why we have to use procedural rhetoric. First off, spectatorship. This turn the decision making. It outweighs their form of decision making because when you have a plan focused debate, you never learn about the concept why contrary action is a good idea. Bioshock Cruise provides a good example on how we have to make the decision between to provide harvesting the little sisters getting at them. This is pretty good because it allows us to see the moral dilemma. Secondly, is complex. We have a better representation by using procedural representation and not going to just a plan and breaking it down to just a plan. By having a broader understanding, it allows you to actually represent the broader complex issue. And the third one is the political discourse. This is the August in 2006 having surrendered the one. This is the current political discourse fails, and only using video games as a procedural rhetoric allows us to solve. They say that it says we have to focus on a specific issue. Yes, it does say we have to focus on a specific issue and use it to advance the cause. However, it doesn't say we have to use it to focus on a type of restriction. So we have to focus on an issue. We're going to say that the type of issue that we're focused on is about the neoliberal powers that are existing in the status quo, and by using our procedural rhetoric with your Metal Gear Solid, we're able to underlie the decision making, underline the problems that are occurring right now and be able to understand what is going on. They say that then they have a bunch of arguments about why we're not able to solve neoliberalism. We're not having to go for this. We just have to solve. They're allowing the criticism. We're critiquing neoliberalism. Allow the issue to come up. There isn't really any imposing impacts coming from the negative. They say that we are imposing value. Imposing value is bad. However, we don't impose value. We just analyze and allow this analysis to exist. We don't impose other people to have to believe this. And they say we should go from a presumption because one is neoliberalism inevitable. We're not going forward. Second, they say we can't solve. Again, not having to go for having to solve all of nihilism means they lose a lot of their defensive arguments here and have no offense. The only offense coming out of the act flow is that the affirmative procedural rhetoric be able to underlie the current system, be able to have the discussions to exist, which is all Redmond indicates we need to solve. The bottom of the card is we need to analyze and critique to be able to start understanding the issues and bring them into our discussion.
And the reason you should understand those issues is because it brings into light issues of neoliberalism like unemployment that go ignored when you focus on wars.
And allows us to actually understand issues like unemployment and
administration, poverty
that we don't understand and ignore when war is going on. On to topicality. They say involved in a specific policy that we are involved in a specific policy and we have to have a specific we are involved in a specific policy game that we have to have a specific policy for. However, nowhere they have it besides saying that we have to talk about they say we have to talk about a specific type of restriction. We don't think this is necessary, especially when they don't have a role of the ballot indicating how to make this decision. They don't say competing interpretations is key or how we should be framing topicality. The only procedure rhetoric is the analysis that is coming out. So you're going to prefer that because it allows us to have bet because we have three disadvantages the way they're viewing that we have to specific policy. The one that I was talking about, the complexity of political discourse and the spectatorship. It indicates that when we try and have a specific policy, it doesn't allow us to actually adequately represent the problem. And by looking at it, backing up and looking at a broader issue, we're able to better understand, which probably turns their topical version of the affirmative. They say that we can use it, tie it to a specific policy. This actually takes out the complexity. We have a complexity disadvantage to this idea, and that we made against the other ones. So even if we didn't tie specifically to this topical version of the plan, we can also apply main answer to topical version of the plan. They say that not everyone's going to understand metaphors. However, that's not necessary. We're bringing it up and allowing people to at least start analyzing, critiquing. They say they're on the ground debate. Their ground losses logical fallacies. The reason it just has don't make sense because they talk about the offensive side rush in general rather than the entry against the values of what talk about the Metal Gear Solid 4. They read an unmanned vehicle good argument. We probably linked to it. Their just said are about change deterrence policy, which even looking at U.S. implementation we bad are affirmed to criticize their concept of ground in the first place. The way they approach ground is disadvantage. Are ways that they can say something is bad. Analyzing procedure software offense because they can criticize how come to the conclusion that neoliberalism is bad. This argument is when we weigh the role of the valve. And they say in-round abuse. In-round abuse arguments aren't true. The reason why they just said it's not working is approach. They approach their negative strategy from the wrong starting point. When you approach the debate from why it is a good idea, you get away from this question. They really don't have any impact coming out of the 2R besides ground. Our arguments all determine the quality of the ground they lose.
We don't know why ground loss is bad.
Yeah,
we
we
know
don't
why
know
spectatorship
ground
is
loss
bad.
is bad. They don't actually take it a step further, kind of like what they're talking about. We don't go a step further. They don't take their topicality argument to the next step and actually create a solid impact to why we should be doing this.
1AR did analysis on spectatorship.
Yeah, 1AR did analysis on spectatorship and complexity and read the card on political discourse being fault. We all determine the quality of the debate. They have no impacts going beyond this. They probably didn't get enough time on topicality from the 2R because they focused on neoliberalism, which means you're going to prefer ours because there are substantive impacts to the way debate works, while they only have this ground impact.
Move that table.
Yeah.
Desk.